Good afternoon, Glendale. It is Monday, April 7th, and this is the Glendale Water and Power Commission. My name is Alex Fay. I'm the president of the commission, and thank you for joining us. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll to kick off the meeting?
Item number 1, roll call. President Fay,
Here.
Commissioner Flanagan,
Here.
and Commissioner Laurie.
Here.
Thank you. Item number 2, consent items. 2A, approval of the January 22, 2025 special meeting minutes.
After we've had a chance to look over the minutes, would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I just had one comment on the minutes. Is that okay to make a
Sure,
comment
sure,
at this
sure.
point? I think that 20% load growth ended up in the minutes. That 20% load growth issue on page 2. Sorry about that. Page 2 of the minutes at the very bottom, we talked about that 20% load growth. And Mr. Mellon sent out the day after that a correction memo that made clear that that's not the case.
Yes, you're right.
Can we amend those minutes to reflect
What was
that?
the correct figure? We can.
Correct number for this particular was 2%, not 20%.
And you sent out a great table that explained that.
Yes.
So maybe a motion to approve the minutes with that amendment?
Yes.
I second.
All right. Let's have a vote on that. We're going to vote on the consent items. We have a motion to approve the minutes?
Flanagan,
Yes.
Fay,
Yes.
and Laurie.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to item number 3, Glendale Water and Power Commission and staff comments.
Does anyone have any comments to open up here? Or we can turn it over to the interim general manager or acting general manager. What's the correct nomenclature these days?
I think today it's acting.
Acting. Very good.
Acting.
All right. Well, Mr. Acting General Manager, please take it away.
Thank you, President Fay. Just have a couple things for the commission. One, we have some videos to show you the progress at Grayson and at Shoal. There'll be 4 videos for Grayson, different angles. It's about 20 seconds a piece on those, so it goes pretty quickly. And the Shoal site would be about 2 minutes. So it does get going as you watch it, so I just ask for your patience. So we'll move through them pretty quickly, but obviously if you have any questions as we move through them, please let us know. Go ahead. This is looking northeastward, the corner right where Verdugo Wash and the LA River come together. This one's kind of a smattering because it's taking the whole life of the project and it's fitting it into a 20-second segment. Yeah. Okay, let it go through. So that one is southbound. The opposite corner of the first one. That's it. That's what's keeping us with the lights on.
Is everything on track with the construction?
We can talk a little bit about that, but yes, for Grayson, it is. Yeah, we have some concerns related to tariffs, and I'll talk about that.
That was on my list.
And this is Shoal. So this is, Shoal did it a little differently. It's a 2-minute long, and it's about a picture every hour. See the engine foundations taking form, the wall's already up, and pretty soon here you see the engines getting dropped in. There we go. There's only one camera for this site because it's a pretty narrow site.
Do we have multiple engines there? Is that
Four.
why there's 4
4 engines.
stacks? And they're each 3 megawatts, something like that?
Yeah, it's about that. It's a total 12, so it's about 3 megawatts. There you go. You probably noticed the amount of rain and all of that, probably for Grayson and Shoal. There's been a fair amount of water on the ground. With respect to the Grayson site, it did take its toll as far as adding little delays, but we work rain days into the schedules, so it didn't affect our schedule overall. But the dirt at Grayson tends to pool the water, so we end up having to move water around and kind of create an artificial pond and let it evaporate off. So let's see.
And then did Grayson start, am I remembering correctly, that it started with all the footings for the batteries?
It is already starting with some of the foundations for the batteries, yes.
Yeah.
We've already got the conduits kind of in the ground. We got the packages put together. We're looking at structurally how to set those up, and it's carved out. So you'll see, yes, you did see some of the locations where the foundation's going to get poured, and I think we actually have 6 foundations poured already for batteries.
Yeah.
You saw the engine building, the engine hall go in, that nice silver house basically in the corner in there. That's come together pretty quickly. All the structural steel's in place there. The structural steel supporting the radiator is just to the side of it. We're actually pouring more footings and more foundations for the GPRS and a few other things in that general area right now. So it's quite a sight to see it coming together, but it was interesting when we went 2D to 3D, is the way I like to say it. As soon as you start to get structures on there, everyone gets real interested on it.
What's the total, for Grayson, what's the total construction time? 3 years?
Let's see, we'll be done June 2026 is what we're aiming at. So I think it was 2.5 years total when you work in demo and site and soil improvements. Yeah, it's moving pretty quickly. The total project? Yes, I mean, we all have access to that, yeah. Here's your mic. I have to make sure your mics are on so we can hear you. There isn't a huge one printed out. We're trying to go paperless on a lot of things, but we do have wider monitors now, so we use those quite a bit.
Stack the monitors.
Yep.
And I understand we have a report scheduled on the construction progress for both projects next month for the agenda
I believe
forecast.
so, yes.
So maybe at that time, we'll see more of those epic Gantt charts and maybe some projections of completion dates and how that'll impact our energy mix in the coming years, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Great, very good.
Thanks, Scott.
Well, thank you for the update. The videos are very telling, much better than what I can see while driving by on the freeway. But that's a nice elevated position to see the site. So.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful, yeah. But hopefully you're not spending a lot of time looking at it as you're driving on the freeway. But I do tend, especially when I'm coming in the morning, I'll look to the left as quickly as I can to see what kind of progress. But it's nice to have the cameras on site. I can catch up on it all day long.
Are you going to talk about the tariffs
Yes.
later?
Yeah, if you'll indulge me, I've got one other topic to cover, and that's the tariffs. I'm sure you guys have become very familiar with tariffs over the last 2 weeks. We've dug into it quite a bit. There are implications to the tariffs that are being passed, and unfortunately, everything's very fluid. I mean, even today, I think Trump's mentioned another 50% tariff on China, and that was on top of the total 54% that they already have. Unfortunately, that 54% on China is going to have an impact on our batteries for the Grayson site. We're putting together a staff report to take to council at the end of the month, looking to address this concern, basically asking for additional funds in lieu of knowing what's going to happen, just preparing for possibilities. But between the tariffs with China, 54%, we have the EU is 20%, Mexico 25%, and Canada 25%. We have lots of things coming in. So Finland is where our Wärtsilä engines are coming from. They're actually in transit right now. In fact, they're probably crawling down the Atlantic coast, going to Panama, and then they're going to creep on over and come to Long Beach. So we're supposed to be getting those by the end of the month.
I mean, when is the tariff levied? I imagine we've already bought those units
We've already bought them, but the tariffs applied on entry.
on entry.
Yeah. So what we're dealing with is it real? And if it is real, we have to plan for it. Anything can happen between now and the end of the month. Just like I said, get up in the morning and everything's different by the evening. So we're just keeping our fingers crossed and preparing for possibilities.
And what's the kind of rough order magnitude of the bill of materials on that shipment from Finland?
Well, I can say that if the tariff is applied, it'll likely be somewhere close to 10 to 12 million extra. And then
Just for the Wärtsiläs.
for the Wärtsiläs only.
Yeah.
On the batteries, it's closer to possibly 50 million.
50?
Yeah, 50.
Those are mega packs? Or
No.
have we changed
They're
the?
CATL batteries from FlexGen.
Yeah.
So because everything's so fluid, we'll have the latest, greatest numbers in the report, but it'll probably be reflective of what we put together today for the end of the month. So by the end of the month, we may have a different conversation with council and have to make modifications on the fly.
And the way this has been rolled out has been, I think, abrupt, maybe is a polite way to put it.
To say the least.
If this had been done in a more deliberative fashion with more lead time, I mean, there's only so much we can do halfway through a construction project to change course, but we really don't have any options when it's already on the boat, already on the way here, right?
Right. And we're looking at all sorts of possibilities, especially associated with the batteries. The batteries are a bigger issue. There are more dollars, and there's more of them. The intent of the batteries is that you don't want them really built or on site until you can actually plug them in, right? Because you don't want them to decline as they're waiting to be used. So right now, we've bought the raw materials for the batteries, and they're still planning on being put together, but we're already invested in the process. So if we were to interrupt that process now, there'd be implications. There'd be penalties for backing out. They'd get to keep some of the dollars. We would look at possibly collecting the materials if we could do that. But that's kind of where we're at right now. And that's all I have.
Well, thank you for the update. I'm sorry it's not better news, but it's just another hurdle we'll have to deal with.
Yep. We'll give it a day and see if it changes.
Okay. I think that concludes our our commission and staff comments.
Item number 4, oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Commission may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The general manager may refer the matter to appropriate staff for investigation and report. We actually do have a speaker, but it's not part of the agenda. It's about electrical rates.
That's fine. I think we made a policy change some months ago to allow any speaker to broach their topic at the beginning, so they don't have to wait. So let's welcome that speaker's comments.
Sure. Beth Brooks, you're on live. You have 5 minutes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thanks so much. I think it's my phone. My name is Beth Brooks, and I was hoping that other people would talk because I know how many people are suffering as far as the their exorbitant bills. And now as I hear you speak about the tariffs and needing to go back to council to obviously get many millions of dollars, whereas we only get $35. I guess this is a city council issue where I think they should be giving people much more money. I think they should be giving people at least $1,200 to $1,500 a year on this, because this is really out of control. And that you're now going to be asking for money, and I'm hoping that you guys are going to do a cost analysis of either deciding to pull the plug now before asking for so much more money, because it looks like maybe double, maybe triple the amount of money, because I don't think people can bear the cost. I don't think we can bear the cost. I don't think this is going to be possible. And the city needs money for other things as well. I'm a real advocate for rent relief because the city doesn't help renters at all with rental assistance who are really suffering and trying to choose between buying food and paying rent. So it's very hard for me to see your department possibly asking for 10, 20, 30, I don't know how many more millions of dollars for a project that right now doesn't seem to be critical. Maybe Grayson is critical because of, the infrastructure, but I don't see it. I mean, I think, you should recoup whatever money you can get back and try again when you think that things are more stable as far as the tariffs are concerned. Because this is just, hey, we can't do this, give us more money. It's really, there has to be another solution, and maybe that solution is to stop midstream, because other people need money, and at least it's certainly the city. People need help paying their bills. This is $35. This is nothing. This is really ridiculous. People are talking. I mean, I know that I had a $400 electric bill, and I barely use electricity in the summer. And I'm on a fixed income. So this has to stop. It's hemorrhaging. And I know the tariffs are fluid, and this is true. It's more a kind of I'll do this to you, let's see what you do back to me kind of thing. I understand if things are on the boat, that of course is different because it costs money to leave things at the port. But really, you should really enter something until things become stable. instead of going to the city and asking for money. I really think it's not fair to the residents. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Mellon, could you think about a way to convert the cost impact of the tariffs into a range of a monthly bill impact? I know we've done a lot of very detailed analyses, and it's not a straight line conversion, but if there's a way to put it into context, what an extra $10 million on Grayson means for someone's electric bill, it might be a good way for people to understand the impacts that the Trump administration tariffs are having at the grocery store on their electric bill and in other parts of their lives.
We can work on that. You're right. It's not going to be a straight line, and it's not going to be a simple one-to-one either. But I guess what I didn't clarify when I was explaining our goal was we are looking at those additional funds without impacting rates. So it will be difficult, but we're looking at how we can manage supplying the additional funds, or at least having access to the additional funds without raising rates or without doing any undue harm, additional harm to customers. So that's our focus right now. And we're looking at the staff. That's where we're working into the staff report, is to see how we can do that.
Great, thank you. Okay, are there any other public comments?
No.
Okay, then let's move on to the next item.
Item number 5, 5A, customer service update.
So we have a customer service update. Ms. Onate will be presenting tonight. I'll let her get settled and then go ahead and kick it off.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I am Crystal Onate. Today I'll be reviewing our statistics for telephone calls, customer online requests, and walk-in transactions. I'll also touch on how many payment arrangements we've granted to customers, as well as funding received from the state program LIHEAP. Next slide. One more. Thank you. Of the number of calls received, we answered 93%. This was slightly lower than our goal of 95%. Within the first 3 quarters, we have surpassed the number of calls received during the same time period last year, which was about 19% more. Within these 3 quarters, we have experienced a higher call volume. This was due to the rate increases, the excessive heat wave we experienced in the summer months, and the windstorms that occurred in January. Next slide. Majority of our online contacts received were handled within 24 hours at 91%. The remaining 9% were addressed within 48 hours. The 11% increase in contacts compared to the same period last year was also due because of high bill inquiries due to the rate increase. We do give our online contacts the same level of importance as incoming telephone calls. Next slide. The majority of customers who came into the office are those that chose to make payments in person. The 31,000 plus transactions equal about 76% of the overall walk-in traffic. The remaining 24% came to the front counter for various types of assistance with their utility bill, and there was a 15% increase in individuals coming into the office as well, compared to the same period last year. Next slide. This graph shows that customers prefer telephone interactions compared to the other available options that we have. This is more than half of our overall contacts at 57%. The overall contacts would be telephones, walk-in customers, and online contacts. The second most popular was coming into the office at 32%. Here again, this shows that customers do prefer a more personable way of communicating with us. And lastly, communicating with us online at 11%. Next slide. We continue to offer payment arrangement options to customers that require additional time to pay their utility bill. The first 3 quarters show that we have already exceeded the previous year by over 1,000 payment arrangements granted. The payment arrangement option is advertised on the reverse side of our bill. All of our notices, our webpage, and also they are available on our phone system and by our staff. Next slide. We continue to refer customers to the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program. This program is longstanding. It's geared towards assisting residential electric customers who are experiencing financial hardship, as well as those customers that were disconnected for non-payment. So far, 920 customers received assistance, totaling over $491,000. This concludes my presentation, Commissioners. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions?
I've got a couple. Go ahead. Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Sounds like you guys have been busy.
We were.
Busy year. And you said because of rate increase, the heat wave, the high winds, the fires, this all became a
Yes, during this.
unusually busy year.
Yes, during the summer, definitely the rate increases combined with the high summer heat that we had in those months doubled customers' usage, which at the end of the day, it showed on the paper.
Yeah, how many people are answering calls like yourself?
Right now, we have about 14.
So on the calls, what happens to the 7% that are unanswered? Do they just hang up and they sort of go away? They're
Yeah,
not going to wait long enough to get
yeah.
somebody to speak to them personally?
In looking at our at some of our statistics, it looks like most customers are impatient. We lose a lot of them at about a minute and a half, just about. Some call back, some use another method.
I may flip over to the online service.
Yes, they'll actually contact us online. But that's pretty much.
And then which mode takes the longest? I would think that the people walking in would take the longest, would be the biggest demand on your staff. Am I wrong about that?
Yes, it does. We over the phone we handle the same topics that we do that they would at the counter. Yeah. Right now it's the cashiering transactions that are taking that are coming in more often to pay their bills in person versus using the web or the phone, the automated system. Yeah. Those are pretty quick transactions. Those that do come into the lobby to, let's say, review their utility bill or request a payment arrangement do take slightly longer. It's more of a handheld process. Because once they're there, they have more questions usually.
Have you had irate customers this year?
Definitely.
Definitely, because mostly due to the rate increases.
Right.
And then last question for me is, are there any federal dollars associated with LIHEAP? I know we keep calling it a state program, but is it funded federally?
I'm not sure. I believe this one is particularly by the state. We did have some federally funded programs, which was our the wastewater arrearage program that we had last year. And then there was another one, I believe it was CAP, that was also available to customers, that came in 2 waves for 2 consecutive years. And that was federally funded.
So I think the LIHEAP funds originate with the federal government and are passed to the states as some block formula, and then they come to us through the states. And I don't know if you were working up to this, but the entire staff of the LIHEAP program has been fired in the last few days. So
Yes, I
um,
did. I did
how-
hear that.
The
And
federal staff.
the federal staff.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the money keeps flowing on autopilot. I'm guessing the intent was to shut down the program. But I'd be curious to know how that might impact us. And if you want to address that, or maybe that's part of our legislative update, it seems like it's a fairly significant source of revenue for GWP. So.
It is. It would be a shame to see that go away. I did read an article where it may go away. As of right now, I have not been given any information from LIHEAP that it's officially closed. As of right now, we are still receiving funding from them. So I don't know if they're just doing it for those that they had already pledged for, and then they might phase it out. I'm not
And
sure.
we have about, what, am I reading this right? We have about 920 customers that take advantage of that, or took advantage of that so far in
Correct.
this fiscal year.
Correct. Just in these first 3 quarters, yes.
And what's our total customer base? 26,000 or something?
About, last I checked, we had 96,910 customers. We may have more or a little less.
So about
Not
1%.
Just 1% or so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a couple questions. I know that in the wake of officially declared disasters and emergencies, sometimes there's a process by which local agencies can seek reimbursement for some expenses. This may be too far down nickels in the couch cushions, but if we had an uptick in customer call volume because of the windstorms or did all that get rolled into our requests for reimbursement, or is there a process for that?
There is a process. This would fall under FEMA and requests through FEMA. We did track all our overtime hours or additional hours for all staff. I couldn't tell you specifically whether or not answering a phone qualified, but in general, we grabbed all the time we spent during that and I think we're working through the process of seeing what applies.
And then it's up to some FEMA administrator to say allowed, not allowed, and then at some point we'll get a reimbursement check from FEMA for those costs?
Close, yeah. I think it's a little bit more onerous than that, but yes, there's qualifiers for it, and I don't know how soon we'll see that, but I think we have applied already.
Is that something that's done at the department or on behalf of the whole city together?
The city applies entirely, and I think we go through them. I mean, when you think about the event hit the whole city.
Sure.
Right? We may qualify for more of our stuff because of what we were doing at the time, but no, it does go through the city.
Crystal, I liked how on the call time you noted what our goal is for response time, and so we can kind of compare how we're doing against that goal. I think that's really helpful to see that we're not hitting the goal the last couple of years, and you explained why. There's a higher call volume. That's having a stated goal like that, I think, is great for all these kinds of metrics because it puts it all into context. So it might be good to think about what else could we draw a line in the sand and say we want to achieve this goal for each one of these.
Okay, absolutely.
And then on the abandoned calls that Commissioner Flanagan asked about, I believe at a previous meeting we talked about exploring a callback system. Is that something that's in process, or we decided it
Yes.
wasn't going to work, or where's that?
We are working with our telecommunications department and purchasing a full new phone system, which will have those capacities for callbacks, more personalized options for customers, as well as even giving surveys after a call. So that's something we're already meeting on. We've already attended several meetings with vendors. So it's something we're actively working on now.
You have an estimate of when we could have that new system installed?
I don't, but I'm hoping it'll be soon.
Good. Well, I'm glad we're working on it. I know people have these experiences, whether it's with an airline or with some other big company, and we should make sure we're at least keeping up with that customer experience. So, very
I
good.
completely support that.
Any other questions or comments on this one?
Are there specific times of day that you have the spikes in volume?
They're
random?
throughout the day. I know when, right when we open, we'll get an influx of calls, and then it'll tape, because we open right at 8:30, our phone bank. And then around 10, it slows down. And then at around lunchtime, say around noon, we'll rev up again. So it's pretty much like that. Our Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays are our busiest days in the contact and payment center. Wednesdays, Thursdays, our call volume's slightly lower, more manageable, for sure.
Okay, I think that's it for 5A. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 5B, legislative update.
Mr. Cacciadoro will be bringing us up to date on legislation that's pending and has been implemented, and a trip that we took. 2 trips, yes. Go ahead.
All right, so there are currently, next slide, please. My apologies. There are currently 2,350 pieces of legislation in the state legislature. We are tracking about 145 of them that are directly tied to utilities. Some are sponsored by the associations that we're a part of, such as the California Municipal Utilities Association. Others are not so favorable to our interests. I think we skipped the slide. Can we go back one more, please? Next one, please. One more. Actually, sorry, go back to the second one. I think I got my pages confused. So looking at the state legislature, the Republicans were able to gain 2 seats in the state assembly and 1 seat in the state senate, so a slight increase. And looking at the House of Representatives at the federal level, initially, while this presentation was made, it was 218 Republicans against 213 Democrats. That has now switched to 220, given the 2 special elections in Florida, Districts 1 and 6. There are 2 more vacant seats that we're assuming are going to go to the Democrats in Texas and Arizona. So be at 220 and 215, so pretty slim majority for Republicans. And in recent days, we've seen more and more come out and siding with Democrats in both the House and the Senate. So things such as tariffs could be voted on the Senate floor if more Republicans side with the Democrats. Next slide, please. And I wanted to talk about our new representatives. I'm assuming you guys have probably already heard of them, but we have Assemblymember Nick Schultz, who's the former mayor of Burbank. He has replaced Assemblymember Laura Friedman as our state assembly member, covering North Glendale, essentially everything north of Lexington. And you have Jessica Caloza, who is a former Obama administration Department of Education policy advisor, worked for Mayor Garcetti of Los Angeles, and Deputy Chief of Staff to AG Rob Bonta. She's also the first Filipino in the state legislature, and Glendale's home to a pretty large Filipino community. And she replaced Wendy Carrillo. She covers South Glendale, I think south of Lexington. Senator Sasha Renee Perez replaced Senator Anthony Portantino. She was a former mayor of Alhambra and was also the youngest woman to serve as a mayor in the San Gabriel Valley. And obviously, we all know Laura Friedman, our former mayor, council member, Senate member. She has replaced Adam Schiff in the U.S. House of Representatives. She's been great. Her and her staff have helped us with talking points and letters to Republican colleagues, helping us with our goals. Congressman Schiff is now our Senator Schiff, joining Alex Padilla. So we have pretty decent allies on all levels of government at this point. Next slide, please. Starting with Sacramento, we took 2 trips to Sacramento, February 3rd and February 19th. February 3rd was for the California Municipal Utilities Association Capital Day, which organized public utilities from across the state. We met with our representatives, with Senator Perez, Senate Members Caloza and Schultz. Some of the things we highlighted with them was the need to reauthorize the cap and trade program beyond 2030, talking about affordability. I think federally and statewide, affordability has been the topic of the year, I think, and using non-ratepayer funds such as the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund to support future clean energy projects. February 19th, we took a second trip with the mayor, and once again met with our state representatives. And you can keep it on the first slide as well. And the topics discussed were utility fleet vehicles and trying to secure exemptions for them, as well as energy efficiency programs for renters and low-income households. The mayor wanted to see if there are programs designed that offer payments for changes in homes versus reimbursements, given that low-income folks can't afford to make those changes at their own cost and wait for reimbursements. We also supported the Delta Conveyance Project and looked into funding for water recycling production. Next slide, please. Our Washington, D.C. trip, Mr. Mellon was with us and the mayor. We met with Adam Schiff, Laura Friedman, and staff from Senator Padilla's office. The biggest topic, I would say, was the public tax-exempt public bonds, municipal bonds. The Republicans have considered removing the tax exemption from that. There is a letter being led by a Republican from Nebraska, and Congressmember Friedman has signed on our behalf, calling on the House to vote to not include this on the chop block, essentially. We also met with the Department of Treasury and Senate and House Energy Committee staff from both majority and minority. Next slide, please. So looking at Sacramento, the legislative calendar is May 2nd, last day for policy committees to hear any fiscal bills. June 6th is the last day for each house to pass bills introduced in that house. June 15th, budget bills must be passed at midnight. July 18th, summer recess begins. It's 2 weeks later than usual. Usually prior to the 4th of July, they'd go on recess, but I guess everything's pushed back. The fires did cause a lot of commotion early on in this session, and August 18th session resumes in Sacramento. Next slide, please. So here are 3 energy bills that we're looking at. Again, we are tracking 145 bills. These are just 3 that we thought we'd want to share. So AB 39 is local electrification planning, requires California cities and counties to integrate climate action electrification elements into their general plans. So Glendale does not have this in our general plan, so this might be something we would have to have staff look into. AB 303 by Assemblymember Don Addis. This was triggered after the Moss Landing fire, the battery storage facility up there. So the bill would establish limitations on where battery storage facilities can be built away from schools, homes, wetlands, hospitals. From my understanding, the battery used there is different than ones that we'll be using at Grayson, if I'm not mistaken.
The particular batteries that are used there are not the same type that we're using at Grayson. Yes.
And there are other bills, such as Senate Bill 283, that are more preferable to us. So Senate Bill 283 would mandate that new facilities adhere to the National Fire Protection Association 855 standards, which are the most comprehensive and widely recognized guidelines used across the country. Senate Bill 540, co-authored by Henry Stern and Josh Becker. This would allow for the creation of an expanded Western electricity market overseen by the regional organization, the RO. It would be an independent entity with specific protections for individual state policies and the public interest. The bill would authorize the CAISOR, CalISO, and California utilities to participate in energy markets governed by the RO. So the goal of this is to allow for us to purchase power being produced in states outside of California more than we already do. We know of members, POUs in Idaho and Montana who are interested in joining this. Los Angeles has also said that they plan on joining this organization once it is created. Next slide, please. So here are some bills that are kind of at a nexus of energy and water. AB 259 by Assemblymember Blanca Rubio. would indefinitely extend the Brown Act teleconferencing measures provisions. It's not used by us necessarily, but it's used by water and power agencies across the state. So it's something that a lot of utilities are supporting. AB 514 by Cody Petrie Norris would declare that it is established policy of the state to encourage but not mandate the development of emergency water supplies by local suppliers and to support their use during times of drought or unplanned service or supply disruption, once again motivated by the water pumping issues following the LA fires. Senate Bill 496 by Melissa Hurtado would require that CARB establish the Advanced Clean Fleets Regulation Appeals Advisory Committee, it's a long name, by an unspecified date to review appeals of denied cases and requires for the requirements of the Advanced Clean Fleets Regulation. Once again, after the fires, it's basically looking to provide leniency for utility vehicles that are essential during natural disasters. So it establishes a secondary committee that would look into appeals. Next slide, please. Assembly Bill 532 by Rhodesia Ransom. The current law requires the Department of Community Services and Development to administer the Low-Income Household Water Assistance Program in the state and to receive and expend monies appropriated and allocated to the state for purposes of that program. The Low-Income Household Water Assistance Program was only operative until March 31st, 2024. This bill would repeal the above described requirements related to the Low-Income Household Water Assistance Program and would instead require, upon appropriation by the legislature, the Department of Community Services and Development establish and administer the California Low-Income Household Water Assistance Program to provide water rate assistance to residential ratepayers of community water systems and urban retail water suppliers that serve disadvantaged communities. Senate Bill 72 by Ana Caballero would revise and recast certain provisions regarding the California Water Plan to, among other things, require the department expand its membership to tribes, labor unions, and environmental groups. Would also require the Department of Water Resources, as part of the 2033 update to the plan, to update the interim planning target for 2050 to consider identified and future water needs for sustainable urban, agricultural, and environmental sectors. Next slide, please. And just a future events that are coming up. May 30th, 31st, we are planning a tour with the City of Santa Monica and the Metropolitan Water District to the Hoover Dam. I believe we plan on inviting the commission. And July 23rd, we are taking part in a SCAPA policy tour, which brings down legislative staff from Sacramento. Last year, we hosted them and showed them around Grayson and Shoal Canyon. Not sure if we'll be hosting again this year. We haven't planned that exactly yet, but I'm hoping we can bring them back and show them the progress we've made. And I believe that's it for me. Any questions?
Fellow commissioners, any questions here?
It was my understanding that there was some legislation that was being considered regarding electric vehicles and the being produced to be sold in California, that by a certain date that they would need to be bidirectional. Do you know what has happened with that legislation?
I'd have to check up on that. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, I don't have the number. I wasn't.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
My recollection is that bill was passed, but it has an effective date in the future, such that it hasn't really been relevant for consumers yet.
Okay. I think it's like 2027.
That's what stuck out to me. But yeah, it would be good to see, because there are already vehicles being produced that have this technical capability. And we've talked about it here, and whether we think it's a good idea to allow customers or encourage customers to do that. I think in many cases our grid just is not up to it. And so I think that's something we want to make sure that we're prepared to meet our customers' needs if they want to be this progressive.
All right.
Thank you for mentioning that.
They do have in PG&E territory. PG&E and GM are working together on a program for bidirectional charging. So I think it would should be something that we should be at least aware of. And as Alex says, whether we can hopefully implement it or not.
Yeah, I'll definitely look into that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Flanagan, any questions?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. AB 303, the battery energy storage. there must be some language about what kinds of batteries are defined as battery energy storage facilities.
So
Or is it just sweeping right across?
it
the
is just, yeah.
So how about size of battery? That
I
must be delineated
I
somewhere.
believe there was.
Yeah.
I don't have it on me, but it's pretty all-inclusive of most battery units. It would have to be something very insignificant to kind of fly under the radar of this bill.
Right.
And most people are saying that this is not going to pass. That's why there are two other bills competing against this.
Okay.
So
Because
I can give you a little insight if
Yeah,
you don't mind. The battery size was 2 megawatts or greater.
Mhm.
And the language, some of the language that was written in that actually was pulled from oil and gas refineries. That's why it really didn't apply very well, the 3,200-foot distance from the battery source and things like that. It didn't call out chemistry types. That would have been very helpful if it had.
Yeah.
But there are, I believe, 2 other bills that are being worked on right now that are
Right.
similar in nature, but basically focus on the National Fire Protection Association's guidelines.
Yeah.
Like
With
you
this,
said.
I mean, as you said, this bill probably won't pass, but is Grayson, I mean, our battery packs at Grayson may be 3,200 feet.
We would have a
from
lot of
homes.
problem if the 303 passed.
We would.
Yes. Yeah,
How far are we from, so we don't have any schools down there, I don't
we're,
think. but-
we're very close because let me see, southeast corner is probably the closest to San Fernando, closest to businesses, closest to everything. So we're well within that 3,200 feet.
Well, and taking it away from our narrow interest on that particular site, I think just conceptually, one of the great benefits of energy storage, battery energy storage, is that it can be stored locally where it is needed, right? And we eliminate the need for transmission lines and all those losses and costs, right? So
Closer to the load, the better.
in that sense, I mean, I find this to be very wrong-headed. I understand the reaction after the Moss Landing incident, and that's pretty typical. And I think it sounds like there's a flurry of bills that may go nowhere after the fires. You know, we want to look like we're doing something. But if you guys think this one's dead, then that's fine. That makes me feel better.
There's enough opposition to it that we do think it's pretty much dead.
And you think about what the Koreans are doing with vanadium flow batteries at the utility scale, and
Vanadium,
it's considered very safe.
vanadium is, but it's still handled like a toxic material if it's spilled. So the iron flow and iron air batteries, they're much better for the environment if they're spilled, right? So you don't have to be so concerned about the fluids for those. You still require quite a big chunk of land to support that. So the energy density of that still doesn't compare to lithium ion.
Was there any discussion about the large propane tank thing just down from Grayson? Right next to the railroad track, there's a giant propane tank and a propane service. It's just
South of the 134.
south of Grayson, just as you get past the 134, it's right there. And there's literally, the propane is I don't know, it's 20 yards from the railroad
Really?
track. I mean, I think that's Los Angeles
It is.
there, but if we're talking about, I mean, I don't know, I don't know who ever approved, putting that there, but it seems to me like it should be a concern.
Yeah, well, I don't know what all the rules were when that business set up, but I do know that California needs its space, and we're getting more and more dense, so it's likely that the communities have kind of snuck in closer to the industrial just because we need places to live. So it's probably something that LA would have to, one, address, but should consider.
if I'm not mistaken, that is one of the more dangerous intersections in the county. And
Yeah.
Supervisor Catherine Barger did allocate funds, I think, 2 years ago to start a study to add safety measures to that corner. Yeah.
Yeah, all it would take would be one car getting stuck on the track there.
Yep.
And they're gonna have, a real bad situation.
Well, this is slightly off topic, but I know Metro and Caltrans are both doing projects in that particular area, and they're looking to change Doran, I think it's Doran off-ramp, and a separate connection to an on-ramp point. It's going to be very convoluted, congested in that area because of all the projects that are going on. But yeah, I think the intent is that they're going to be removing some of that lack of safety, I guess. But these are probably 2 years in the making on those projects.
Where are the batteries located in Grayson? Are they in that southeastern corner down there? Or?
They're not on the corner exactly. They're kind of the number 9 unit is kind of in that corner. So the battery is more offset towards center, but it is more on the southern end of the site. It's not readily accessible to anything that would be crashing into us, if that's kind of what you're concerned about. Yeah. It's very hard to get at.
Good, good.
Any further questions? Oh, thank you for the legislative report, and please keep us posted, not just about formal legislation, but I think there are a lot of kind of other policy decisions, some executive actions, some regulatory interpretations that will have a big impact on us, whether it's the LIHEAP or the tariffs, those kinds of things. So maybe the next time we get together, maybe it's another section and that's like kind of the other or miscellaneous actions.
Sure. I was going to say, I did see the firing of the staff, but I haven't seen anything since on what's going to happen to the program itself. So I'll keep an eye on that.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes item 5.
President Fay, we have a speaker who would like to speak about notice about shut-offs. Mr. Herbert Morlano, you can come. You can come up.
Commissioners, good afternoon. My name is Herbert Molano. It has been a while since I made a presentation to the Glendale Water and Power Commission. And I would like to address a problem that I figured you should be aware of and that the City Council should be aware of. And it concerns when the economy goes into a downturn, the impact that the ability of utility payers have in paying their bi-monthly bill. I did a study back in 2009 and made a presentation to the City Council back then because it was right after the major economic downturn. And what I found at the time through the California Public Records Act was that 90% of the residents in the area just south of Colorado, between Brand and Chevy Chase, the Mariposa district, 90% of those families received a 48-hour notice of impending shutoff. And every time there is a major economic downturn, I basically asked and made the request for the same one. So I did that about a month ago, and I received a reply that shocked me. The reply was that about 60,000 overall throughout the city received an impending notice of shutoff. I talked to one of the council members, and I said, this number looks outrageous. People cannot be in such a dire difficulty that they cannot pay their bill. So he replied back to me after he checked, and it appears to be that there was just a total number of people who got a late notice. So I still have that pending, even though I made the request back in January, to find out how many families in Glendale receive a 48-hour notice of shutoff. I think it's a measure of the family's ability to pay. And the areas of the city which have the lowest income per family, which is the Mariposa district, they should be looked at on a regular basis. Then I thought, maybe this is a report that you should be getting every month as part of the overall performance reports. You get a performance report today with regard to how much activity takes place within customer service. But it's a very large number of individuals who come in person, right, to pay their bill still. It's a huge number. And I wonder how many of them really are having such a difficulty, right, that they need to be addressed somehow, right? with regard to city policy, but it comes with recognition first. I'm concerned because even though we have this public benefit percentage that is being basically allocated from every bill, I think that a pretty good chunk of that is really heading up north for the purposes of environmental, solar power and funding of charging stations for electrical vehicles. Because in my mind, the individuals who can request and afford a meter for their charging station not only have their own home, which makes them like the 1/3 of the families in Glendale, but also have the means to buy an expensive vehicle, number two, and then are getting a significant portion of those funds. And maybe we are not allocating a sufficient number of funding to those families. I was at Ralph's right here close to us, and I saw a lady, an Armenian lady, buying about $20 worth of groceries. And she was arguing about getting an additional $1.50 discount on her blueberries. And she wasn't getting it because she needed to have an electronic coupon, and she didn't understand that. And I know she's Armenian because one of the box boys who were helping out is Armenian, and they spoke in Armenian. And my question came to me is, if she's having that much difficulty with regard to paying her groceries, how is she bearing when she gets her electric bill? And how much assistance is it? And the number that we should be using is that number, right? On every month, how many families are receiving this 48-hour impending shutoff? Because the actual shutoffs occurred with quite a lot of frequency back in 2008, 2009. And so it's an issue of fairness, it's an issue of awareness, it's an issue about policy. That my suggestion is that maybe it should be part of your monthly report as an assessment as to how we're doing. Because our electrical bills have increased significantly. I remember when it was only just 14 cents per kilowatt hour. We're now at 28 cents per kilowatt hour. So how is that impacting families? I would appreciate your attention to that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments and for being so well prepared. We did have a presentation earlier from the customer service team that I think reflected the trend that you mentioned. We were measuring the number of payment arrangements that had been granted. So in response to a request from a customer that's having a hard time paying their bill, that number has been trending up steadily since 2021, more than doubled. So I think that speaks to the same trend, but the suggestion to look at the 48-hour notice, maybe that's another data point we could consider. Maybe it could just be another bar next to this one on the same chart if we have that data available. Might be a good leading indicator before payment arrangements are needed. So thank you for the suggestion. I think that concludes item 5.
Yes. Next item, item 6, agenda forecast.
So commissioners, we have before us an agenda forecast for the rest of this calendar year. Next month scheduled the electric reliability report and updates on the Grayson and Shoal projects, as well as the renewable portfolio and energy update and GWP Commission elections. Question maybe for our city attorney. It's a little lonely up here this month. Can you tell us where we are in the process of filling out the commission and what bearing that may have on holding elections next month?
Sure, of course, President Fay. I am aware that there was a nomination made at the last city council meeting. Hopefully, city council will make an appointment. I'm not sure if both seats have been filled or not, but we are hopeful, and that's why we kept holding off on the president and the secretary elections. We're very hopeful that by next month we'll have a full commission. If that doesn't happen, then the recommendation would be, if the commission so desires, to push the elections again until there is a full commission, or you could proceed with the elections. But fingers crossed, we'll have a full commission next month.
Great, thank you for the update. I see there are a couple months where it looks like we have meetings scheduled, but nothing specifically allocated there. I think we have in the past thought that if there's nothing urgent, we just cancel the meeting. I think we ought to maybe dig a little deeper. There's so many things going on here at the department. I'm sure there's lots of interesting things we could spend an hour talking about. So even if we haven't allocated anything there, I would encourage us to try to keep those meetings. Any other comments or questions?
I guess I'm curious about, I'm always interested in the status of our demand response programs and our energy efficiency efforts. Is that going to be covered next month with the energy update, the renewable portfolio and the energy update, or might that warrant even a bigger billing, maybe in that July meeting?
No, it'd probably be covered with the energy update.
Okay.
And where are we in, I think it's a 2-year cycle for the public goods charge.
Public benefits charge.
Public benefits charge, excuse me, that gets allocated by the city council. Where are we in that process, and can we schedule a stop on the way to the city council with this group before it goes for a formal hearing?
President Fay, I can check with our, Razan is handling that report. She's our clean energy officer, and she is most of the way done with it. She's done a very thorough job of it. Our goal was to go to council late May because we wanted to have time to discuss what the programs look like. And then council might have to take a couple rounds to approve it. So I can check to see if she's at a point where we can actually include it in the May discussion.
Okay.
And go from there.
Yeah, I think that category includes a lot of the topics we end up dragging out from various other things.
Right.
So it might be good just to meet that head on. And it is, I think, one of the few areas here where we actually do have a lot of discretion as a city to make policy on how to spend these things. Right. So within those prescribed categories, we can allocate, right? So yeah, I think that would be a good one to include. And it sounds like it's coming up fairly soon. Time flies. Any other changes that gentlemen would like to see? Okay.
What is the status on the general manager position? Is that a fair thing to ask?
It might be a fair thing to ask. I don't know if it's a fair thing to ask me.
Well, in terms of timing or process, I know that when Mr. Young was selected, I served on a full day in full day advisory capacity. We met with all the candidates. I don't know, is that same process happening, or?
It's already happened.
Oh, it's already happened.
Yes.
So that would suggest that we're going to hear something soon?
I think one would hope. I think that's the response I can give. Yes. We're waiting to find out.
I think we're all interested in the outcome and would like it to be resolved as soon as possible.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Well, with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, great. I think there's unanimous consent here, so we will adjourn the meeting at 5:10 p.m. Thank you all very much for your time.